One of the big takeaways, Matt, that I read in the book, people often tell stories and use the word and. I went here and this happened and then that happened. But you talk about but and therefore. And I've been kind of practicing with but and therefore, and they make such a huge difference to storytelling. Can you tell us just a little bit more about how you use them and why people should use them in their stories?
Sure. I mean, I guess the biggest proof that the and stories are bad is because first graders tell them all the time. How was your weekend? Well, I went here, and then I went there, and then I went there, and I went... Like, that should be enough for us to know that the ands are bad. But the ands are bad because when you tell a story and you're connecting scenes and moments with the word and, you're not creating any sort of architecture that is dependent upon the previous thing that was said or the past or the next thing that's being said. When you use a but, essentially the two things that you're connecting are now interconnected, and they rely upon each other. They need each other to survive. An and story, that does not happen. Oftentimes, if you're telling an and story, you can remove an entire scene from the story and it still makes sense because it was just an extra thing that was added in. So a but or a therefore story, meaning I was doing this, but then this happened, therefore this happened, but this happened because this happened, so this happened. Now everything feels interconnected and it feels to an audience like everything's important. There's no extra fluff in this story. Everything is linked tightly and dependent upon each other. And I especially love but, even more than therefore, because I think the negative is really more interesting in a lot of ways. You know, I like to say it's much more interesting to say I am not smart than it is to say I'm dumb. Because if I say I'm dumb, it's flat. I've given myself one thing that I can be. I am dumb. But if I say I am not smart, essentially in the audience's mind, I've presented a binary. I've presented the idea of the potential of being smart, but I am not smart. So being not something is actually more interesting than being something because it creates more opportunities, more options, more possibilities in the audience's mind. So I'm constantly looking for the but because the but just keeps people listening. Because you set them up with one thing and then you say, but people have to know what you're going to say. I saw the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. She walked into the room, but that but signals a wealth of possibilities. Does she have like one arm, right? The most beautiful woman in the world, but she has one arm. The most beautiful in the world, but she's married. The most beautiful woman in the world, but she's a serial killer. Like the but just opens the door to everything. Whereas if I had said the most beautiful girl in the world walks into the room and that does not lend the mind to start guessing what the next thing I'm going to say is. So when I hear a but in a story, it's always the moment I go, yes, I want to know what's going to happen next. So I'm constantly constructing stories with a but involved.
Yeah, it kind of gives a little bit of suspense to it as well.
Yes.
You think you know where the story's going, but they stop and bring you back somewhere else and layer something on.